Hello, and I wanted to do a video on the progression of a human being into enlightenment and the process of seeking and the process of desiring and wanting ourselves to feel different, to be different, and then the journey that sometimes that process takes on. And I will chime in with my personal, 2 cents in my three-dimensional space. When my crazy activation happened in 2017, there was a lot of confusion and a lot of um, um, questioning on my end of what exactly was happening to me, right? So instead of me going out and seeking things, instead of me going out and asking for things, things just came about. And then I started to crazily experience all of these things that I was completely confused about, being unaware of energy, being unaware of intuition or psychic phenomena per se. I've heard of concepts and I've experienced them growing up in Ukraine. But of course, until have it within you and it starts running as a course, as your truth, right? You always think of it as an outside source, right? And so when things started to happen to me in 2017, the confusion basically at first in me, just kind of like arose this like crazy scrambling and crazy desire to go, wait, am I, like somebody should drive me out to the insane asylum and just deposit me there, because the things that are happening to me, I cannot control, and um, I cannot explain. And so that quickly, very very quickly, took me on this crazy road to understanding, right? Like I started reading books, I started attending workshops, or just trying to do anything at all to actually kind of formalize, um, where is it that I'm standing, and what is it that has happened to me, and what is the definition behind it, right? And it being somewhat of an esoteric thing to me at that back then, um, really, kind of threw me for the loop, right? But after I have identified the fact that, okay, I'm experiencing psychic phenomena, okay, I'm experiencing some crazy intuitions, I can astral travel, I have energy flowing through me, I can manipulate it. And so, like, as all of those things start to formalize and then come on board, uh, very quickly I established kind of like a parameter of like, oh, here's all the things I can do, right? Um, and as exciting as that then became, after not being scary, right? Like after the holy for holiest moment leaves, and then you're kind of like, oh, this is cool. You kind of enter into the play mode of like, oh yeah, I can do this and I can experiment with that, and oh, let me see what I can do with this, right? And so there's this moment um of your self discovery through experimentation, right? And with me, I've discovered very quickly that channeling is my kind of like easiest go to medium that was kind of being pushed into me. And so, I started experimenting with channeling. I started experimenting with automatic writing. By experimenting, I mean like, just go into the meditative state and then see what happens. And then, obviously, for some people, one thing happens, and for me, channeling happens very easily. Um, and so after you go into the experimental and kind of like the playful state of your intuitive progression or your human enlightenment, um, then enter the state of, okay, now what, right? And so most of human development, most of our transitional phases as maybe light workers or spiritual beings, um, kind of comes to this point in life where after you have identified what's happening to you, and you have kind of like, okay, oh, don't need to drive myself to the insane asylum. You go enter into this playful state, right? And then the next state is seeking. And then the seeking then goes, okay, well, now that I know what I can do with all of this. What is it that then now I do with it? And the seeking is kind of a very interesting pitfall, a caveat that most of us, including me, fall into is um, just like with any knowledge, right? In a three-dimensional space, you want to be able to apply it and you want to be able to use it, and then find your place in the world with this new adjustment or with this new interpretation of yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like obviously the skill set is there for you to to find your true being, right? Or really what you truly came here to do in this world, and then push that out into the world. By push that out, I mean just allow it to naturally flow it out of you in the form that it has itself, best adapted for delivery. But there's a small part of us that spends time reaching and seeking for the sake of doing and for the sake of increasing this reach or increasing this ability, not and then this is the caveat, not because that it naturally flows out and has a natural way of expressing itself, but then we are trying to cram in forms of expression within this new interpretation of us. And so I fell into that pitfall too, is obviously after this discovering, after this playfulness, and after ability to go, my gosh, I can do all of these amazing things, right? Then comes time for you to start centering in, and if the centering doesn't happen, right, then you're reaching out, and you are uh, almost going backwards in your spiritual development, and falling into the pitfalls of doing for the sake of doing as opposed to allowing things to be. And so through that, I wanted to make this video to say that that is a stage of of not necessarily surrender to your skill set, not necessarily surrender to what this new interpretation is or how it should be or what the natural flow of it to experience, but more of as I play with it, take it to the next degree and trying to start cramming it into the places, one, where it possibly does not belong, or two, where your being does not belong, right? So the extrapolation of the energy can go all kinds of directions. And that seeking, right, that connection, that need they need to belong with this new interpretation of self. It's obviously still there because you're still a human in the human form, right? And so as you seek out, and as you try to explore more, and as you try to connect, or as you try to find mentors that will somehow chime in on whatever it is you're feeling, you become lost in the process of seeking and doing for the sake of seeking, as opposed to allowing the energy to express itself naturally, just like it came naturally. And so I kind of fell into the pitfall of that myself, and I wanted to make kind of this public announcement of what that interpretation looks like. So a lot of workshops out there, a lot of developmental classes are there, are set up for your self-discovery, right? But it is way too easy to get lost in seeking yourself or trying to find yourself in another one or another one and another one. And then once again, you become lost, just like you were before, prior to this energy coming in seeking, and then trying to fit and trying to make it fit, or trying to make yourself fit, or trying to make this definition of you be something bigger or better, right? And then there's the doing, and the doing comes, and the doing comes. And then you're simply once again lost, just in a new way, right? Prior to that, I was lost in what the heck am I doing with my life? And then post 2017 is like, what the heck is happening to me? Then after that adjustment period happens, then I'm lost once again. Is what the heck am I doing with this new life, right? And so the centering in is required, and the centering in is almost, it requires a patience and evaluations to realize that just as the natural energy came there on its own, right, without you asking for it or without you begging for it or without, in my case, me even wanting it, um, it should then propagate naturally on its own, without me trying to force it, or without me trying to wish for it to be different or to be bigger or to be noticed or to be um, or to be interpreted or utilized. That is another thing. Is it's very easy for me to fall into, well, I have this energy, right? I have this power. How do I utilize it, right? Because it's almost human to use the tools that we have available for ourselves. In order to better the world or in order to better our families or our cities. But that is a pitfall within itself, right? Is that chase of like, well, I have this, I got to use it, right? As opposed to allowing things to come naturally. So I hope this is helpful. I'm currently not necessarily at the place to where I can tell you what is past the centering, as I'm entering to kind of more of a centering of my being and kind of that consolidation of where I'm starting to understand the path a little bit better, and I'm starting to interpret like, okay, what has been the road thus far, and what has the pitfalls been thus far, and then possibly, maybe where I could have done differently or how I could have done better. But better is from the three-dimensional standpoint. Everything is perfect just the way it is, but that human tendency to cram it in or to fit it in does tend to exist, and it tends to awaken with a new new skill set, and so we do have that tendency. I have that tendency to then seek, and then cram, and then belong, and then try to fit it in, or trying to make it manipulated, make it be bigger than what it needs to be, and it will be all of those things, right? It will belong, it will fit in, it will be exactly the way it needs to be, once you center in, right? Once you stop the cramming, stop the controlling, right? Stop the need to adjust, and simply let it be as is. So I hope this is helpful. It's been kind of my journey of my intuitive and psychic development. And this is where I am right now, as a snapshot. So good luck on your path.